So, Business Belters, episode 3. We're getting through these fairly quickly. It's going good, week to week. So, last time we were speaking about how we're kind of running the business, almost like how do we start it up. One of the kind of things I thought we should talk about is business mistakes.
Amazing topic.
Not often spoke about. Yeah. I think a lot of entrepreneurs would probably shy away from it. There'll be a lot of kind of, don't know if I want to share that. But I thought that's exactly the reason why we should kind of talk about it, because do you know what? Somebody has to kind of be honest and tell it's not all unicorns and rainbows, you know?
Yeah.
Was it sunshine and rainbows, the Rocky quote?
Sunshine and rainbows.
Exactly that. So in this episode, let's talk about business mistakes. Do you want to lead us off, Mark?
Absolutely. It's a great topic, to be honest, because nobody talks about mistakes. They always talk about the nice stuff. But one of my big things was actually not a business mistake, but it's fueled my business. So basically, I get consumed with debt when being a student.
So this is before the business?
This is before the business.
Right.
Being a student, I took out lots of credit cards. And at the time, banks were just giving money out willy-nilly as well. I think it was between 2000 and 2010. They're just like, yeah, you can have a credit card, you know. You don't even have a job. Need to have a job. They just give you a credit card for it. So I rung up a bit of debt around about that time. It was about 10 grand a debt or something, and the actual bank contacted me and said, we can give you a student loan, so basically be able to consolidate all your debt, and then you just need to pay that kind of one monthly fee. The bank, this is why they were giving out money so easily, the bank came to my door with the application form, just sign that, we filled out the whole thing, all you need to do is just...
They gave you 10 grand at your door?
11 grand they gave me.
Wow.
11 grand they gave me. Next day, and the money's in my bank account, right? So being a student, being silly, going out, you know, as you say, you go out partying and drinking and stuff like that, and then you just spend a bit of money here, and then you spend a bit of money there, and then all of a sudden, like, I can't pay that credit card off now, and then it just ended up bringing up all the debt. So I never paid off. I think I paid off one of the credit cards. So I rung up quite a bit of debt, nearly about £20,000 in debt, and then I start my kind of working career, paying off, you know, this credit card, and then I talked about obviously the redundancies, got made redundant. And you still got to pay all these bills and all that type of stuff, which caused a lot of issues at the time. And I then actually ended up having to kind of manage the debt. I contacted all the debt, all the companies to basically freeze the interest and all that sort of stuff, and basically got myself into some sort of debt management plan.
And did that carry into the business?
No, it never carried in. It was all paid off previous to the business. But it was such a learning, because all the way through my 20s, kind of early 30s, like I was paying off and trying to get myself down, and you know, really just not having any credit, not doing anything like that, and it affected my credit rating massively, because I wasn't, you know, when I was redundant, I wasn't able to pay things, and you know, you were basically, you know, getting letters saying that you missed payments here, so my credit rating took a right whack. But that was a massive learning, and that's obviously brought into the business, and that's why kind of tailing into, you know, business, that is something that I've learned that I will never kind of happen again within my personal career or business. So I'll always kind of think about the money kind of side of things. Always make sure that I'm always in profit, or you know, at balance, and never really going under. Sometimes you know that you might go under for a certain reason, but you know that you're doing it as a strategy. It's not, or you know, if you're going to hire lots and lots of staff, you know the staff are going to pay you back over time. So there's strategies.
That's certainly the hope.
Hope. But talking about that, I mean, one of the biggest business mistakes of business is essentially pulling a first hire. I googled a contract. So I managed to Google it, download a contract from there, rather than getting an actual real one from maybe ACAS or whatever, or a HR person. And signed up my first member of staff, who was absolutely brilliant, really, really great member of staff. Worked really hard, amazing at content. And I started he didn't have a job, so I started on a little bit of a lower salary, because again, it was my first employee. I didn't really have the money there, and I wanted him to prove himself, and he proved himself in the first like month or two, and I got him in and says, pass the probation, and I'm going to give you more money. So in the contract it says I was going to give you more money. To that amount, I gave him more than what he says. That's wonderful. That's great. But he also had something in the contract about a bonus. So that was always there as a kind of bonus. So anyway, we working on. He then asked for he was working hard and he's asked for even more money. So he was doing a good job, didn't want to lose him, and I gave him the money. So this, from when he started, this is a $7,000 wage rise he's had in 6 months.
Generous. I wouldn't have done that.
$7,000 in 6 months, right? So that is a big jump. Right?
8.5.
And end of the year came. What I did was, and it's maybe a mistake, I like to be transparent in business. I like the staff to know where we are in as a business. I try to build that into the culture. But I think this might have backfired in a certain way, because I was like, this is what we've done, because bringing them on was great. It ended up helping the turnover. We then brought on more staff. So I was like, there we are here. This is what we've done. This is where we're going to try and get to, like money-wise, turnover-wise. And then he came back after Christmas. I want my bonus. And I was like, I've just given you $7,000 wage rise, which is a bit better than
what you would have
than the bonus that you're going to get. I was like, I can't give you the bonus. I mean, I literally couldn't give him a bonus when I was talking about the money mistakes, right? I'm not going to get myself into that money mistake. I am not going into debt. There's no way that I'm going to, just to make him happy, I'm going to actually get myself into debt. Sorry. Phone coming through the computer. Sorry, everyone. So there's no way that I'm going to get myself into debt for that fact. So I was like, you're not getting it. So he was like that. Well, I demand it, and he became quite.
Demands it.
I demand it. He became quite.
See this kind of attitude for the employees as well. So it's like $7,000, and then it's like, so where's more? You know what I mean? Just insatiable.
But what I did was I ended up hiring a HR consultant, and she was absolutely amazing, absolutely brilliant, saved my life. And I've even got her in retainer to now, so I pay her a yearly fee, and she's always there for any time that I need to kind of speak to her or anything like that.
So did she fix that scenario? Or
she fixed that scenario. She was like,
what happened?
So she basically told me exactly what I had to say.
Right.
So basically what had actually happened is, it says, this is what you've got to do. So he's got these issues. You'll go and speak to him and see what he's got to say. He was still being quite annoying. So I then got him back. She wrote me a letter. She then got me back in. She said, and I basically said, it was Friday, and I says, you're going home now. This is the letter. You'll come back on a Monday. So basically the letter's kind of saying that, and essentially these are all the things you're not fitting in with the culture and the business, which essentially isn't fitting into the culture, because we're trying to grow together. And she's like, so basically on the Monday he was going to get let go, but during the weekend he was like that, right, okay, I apologise, there's differences there. He obviously knew he was going to get let go, and he came back in, and as I said, he was a good staff member, still working hard. That was like, I was giving him a sort of second chance. To be honest, it was never the same again. It's kind of like,
I always find that when you have those kind of conversations, it's like damage. You can't unwind what was said.
It's like an analogy you said about your wife, and you divorce your wife. This is probably like having a girlfriend and cheating on her, and then going, right, let's stay together. And that trust is kind of,
the trust is never.
It's never there. It's never the same. It's never the same.
It can be good, but it can never really be the same.
It's never the same. So it lasted a few more months, and he left after that. He kind of was, and it was the main thing. It was just never the same. He knew that, and I knew that as well. But that was one of my biggest business mistakes. Is probably not basically trying to find help elsewhere when you've not got the skills. I'm a really good marketer. I'm getting better at business, but at that time I wasn't really good at HR. I should have probably got the expertise out there to find. What about you? I talked about my business.
Some mistakes. I think the biggest one would have been when I set up that I assumed that everyone was like me. I thought that everybody would be fair. Mm-hmm. If I have a supplier and they render me a service, I pay them in a timely manner. If they tell me they've got 14 days payment terms, I make sure they get their payment in the 14 days. If they're not going to get it in the 14 days, I generally tell them why it's not the 14 days or what the situation is well in advance. So I've always had this in me where if you tell somebody something after the mistake has happened, it's an excuse. If you tell them before, then it was expected. So I've took on clients, and I took on one guy. I'll remain nameless because I'm not really into the whole like kind of shame and blame and public sort of stoning, although they deserve it. But anyway, so we've had some clients like that, and I had a retainer with a client, and the first month went by and they were saying, look, don't really have the money for the retainer now, can I pay you twice next month? Okay, no problem. And then 2 months became 3 months and so on. So what I kind of came to realise was I've now got myself in a scenario where this person owes me £6,000 plus VAT. And we're midway through a project. I've never had this scenario before in my working career or in my business. And the staff are all going, well, what's going on? And I'm thinking, well, wait, that's like 2 or 3 people's wages that are kind of tied up in not paid income. This person's on the phone every day moaning about deadlines or when we're doing this or when we're doing that. But they're not actually paid as a single penny. Now you're talking about not even 1 pence had been given to the company yet. And then I kind of came to realise, like, wait a minute, this isn't right. This really isn't right. And I'm like, well, how much do I know about this company? I don't know their credit standing. I don't know if they can afford this kind of stuff. We are kind of doing all this stuff and helping them. So then what I said to them is like, look, if this doesn't get paid, I'm going to have to take legal action and just basically kind of follow you through the courts to get this money back. And they were like, no, John, it'll get paid, right? So we had this massive escapade where they sent a cheque, the cheque bounced, it's in a transfer, I've got to do this funny kind of transfer, it can't be paid this way, it has to be paid that way, I need sign off, and all these other excuses. And I was kind of glad in a way because it kind of started to telegraph all the types of lies. So when somebody's a compulsive liar and you're putting pressure against them, they're almost going to tell you every type of lie that exists. So I've got a whole codex of lies now inside my head where I'm going, that doesn't sound right. So I took the legal action and I chased them. So the legal action cost around about £6,000 as well, to at that point chase around about £10,000 of debt. So you're talking about £16,000 in, and then I got to all the way to where the guy got a CCJ against his name, so he gets a black spot. They raid the unit. He's not there. He's not actually been based in that unit for about a year. The funny thing about this is this guy later became a lawyer. So he's studying under the bar, which is, baffles me. But in any case, the business mistake isn't actually allowing that to happen. There is a lesson in it to make sure you bill up front and you make sure you kind of do your due diligence on who you're in business with. That's one lesson. But the bigger lesson, I think, is not to kind of be consumed by the debt. So I allowed that scenario thinking, look, I really need that 10 grand. That 10 grand's going to pay a couple of people's wages, we need this, we need that. But I'm spending good money to chase bad money, and I put the company at risk. And actually, like, Loudon design itself nearly failed. Not because of revenue, not because of not enough sales, not because of anything really like that. Literally because we chased this one thing. Because me as a person, I'm quite dogged. I can't get that out of my head in the sense of like, no, they've wronged me, so I'm now going to chase and chase and chase and chase. Whereas now I look at it in the sense of like, look, there's legal processes to protect you about that. That's the lawyer to do that. I pay the lawyer, they chase them, and I just don't even pay attention to it. I'm not even wanting the updates to a certain regard, because I'm thinking my mindset has to be shielded and it has to remain in a positive setting. I kind of think about this like McDonald's, that kind of like have a nice day. Why did they do that? Like having a smile when you serve people, standing up when you talk on the phone, it's to keep your energy high like that. Whereas if I'm saying to you, how's business? And you go, oh, business is great. And you go, how's business for you? Oh, well, I've been rinsed for 10 grand and negative. Actually, that could lose you sales as well. So that's definitely one of the biggest mistakes I've made. You got any other ones?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think it's hiring the wrong members of staff.
That's a good one.
That's where, because like, I'm a bit of a people person, right? And then like I can be talking away, and in an interview situation, you can definitely kind of get along, and you go, actually, I feel that we're going to have a good synergy here. We're going to work well together. And then when day one comes, it's like, oh, maybe not. I can see their skills. I suppose it's a mistake hiring the wrong person and probably trusting people too much. So I hired this member of staff, and she essentially cheated on her task. So I basically gave a task to two people. One was, somebody that's probably going to cost me a little bit more money, had a bit more experience though, versus this person who didn't have as much experience, but the task that she came back with was amazing. It was so good. I was like, that if this is her, with this experience, think what she'll be like, you know, when I'm older and, you know, in a couple of years' time, she's going to be so good, she's going to be the best thing ever. And then, you know, you got that, once they start, the tasks they're not as good.
So what do you think happened there? Do you think somebody else done the task for them, or they just googled it? Or?
She paid, I think she went on Fiverr.com or something like that, and she paid for somebody to do a task for her.
Wow. Wow. I've never seen that one. That's
she told somebody down the line, and then I found out, and then I essentially had I let her go. I was going to let her go anyway, and she wasn't going to make a probation, so I let her go. And she, you know, that was the thing. It was, I think, probably keeping her on too long as well, and just not ripping the band-aid off. It was, you know, it was in my head for a while, and probably having too much anxiety around it, and having business anxiety kind of like build up on you and take control. I should have probably let it go a lot quicker.
I think that's a really hard thing, and that's also a mistake I've made. And I think with probably anyone that's a people person or a nice person, you want to kind of look at it a different way. It's hard to do that. Yeah. It's hard to do that. I've had, I don't know, I'm trying to think how many people I've fired, clients and staff. You know, probably fired about 3 clients, and I fired about maybe 4 or 5 staff members. And the first time I had to do it, it was agonising. It was really, really painful, and it was hard for me because it was like, you know, I want to see the best in people, and I want to give them another chance. But again, I'm glad I kind of got that out of my system, because I'm like, I would actually say that right now I'm probably on the line of brutal, like in the sense of like, if I decide that you're hurting the company, you're damaging the reputation of the company, and it's in my mind that you kind of need to be let go, you're gone. There's like literally nothing you could do to save your job.
It was funny, it was advice that you gave me in the past one time, and it always sticks in my head, you know, with you keeping that person on, and, you know, they're basically taking the food off your table. You know, that money's coming, like... Because
you're thinking, I'll give them a chance, but in reality,
it's damaging.
Like, they're damaging your brand. Exactly. You know, and I've seen absolute horror stories, Mark, where you're thinking, that's crazy. But then I always look at it kind of like it's like a general in an army, right? Yeah. So see if your units go rogue and they like kind of, you know, torch a village. Yeah. That's on you. Yeah. You're their general. You're the guy that put them. You know, they're all wearing like Scottish army uniforms or whatever. So it's like when they go into the field, people say, "There's Mark at Mavens. There's Hybrid Anchor." Oh, I seen one of your guys spitting on the ground outside their unit, or, you know, like flicking a fag into our kind of like car parking area, whatever it is. Yeah. And it's like every single little thing like that comes back to us as a business owner. And you're thinking, that's terrible, because it's like, well, I wouldn't do that. I would always be super respectful about it. But I think now we're like kind of hiring, if I kind of get that in my head, then I'm thinking, right, nah, they're not going there. There's a couple of methods, and like, just to kind of share it for listeners, because I know you've kind of heard that before, but I think if you're hiring somebody and you're unsure whether that person should be here or they shouldn't, there's a very simple method. Imagine you had 3 of them. Would the company be stronger, or would the company be weaker?
It's brilliant, isn't it?
And just looking at it that way, it's like instantly you'll see, shit, I'll spend more and more of my time fixing problems, or actually we'll make a lot more revenue. Yeah. If we had 5 Bobs, we'd be amazing. Yeah. You'd be making a fortune. Yeah. Or if we had 6 Jennifers, we'd be dead. Yeah. It's like we'd be consumed by client mistake after client mistake.
Just on that one with the just my example with the kind of anxiety with letting that person go. So just when I'd let the person go and I was still anxious, I was moaning, and I got the best bit of advice, and it came from my 8-year-old daughter. And I was driving her and I was like, I feel so bad, I've let this girl go, and she was crying and stuff, and, you know, I'm not sure if I, you know, should let her go. And she's like, Dad, I was like, what? She says, it's done now, there's nothing you can do about it. And it was just like,
I love your daughter's like that. She's a secret HR director. Like personnel, like, no, they need to go.
And it was, but if you think about it, it is, but why bother about it? Why get anxious about it? I've made the decision is done, there's nothing I can do about it. They can't bring her back, there's nothing you can do, that's done. Other things as well, mistakes is probably, it's people, so talking about people, bringing on clients that they're not the right fit as well. So I've had clients in the past where I'm probably just thinking in the money and going, great, I'm going to bring a client on because it's going to help, you know, get me more money. That's another retainer on there.
Would you say that problem was more towards the start of your business, or would you say?
Yeah, there's still always, there's always going to be people problems because you still do bring on the wrong type of clients. It's not.
I think it's hard to kind of resist them as well, because sometimes you'll be offered and you're thinking the money's good, and it isn't actually massively outside their wheelhouse. It's kind of like a deviation. I became quite strict on that myself. You know, like say somebody comes and they go, "Could you do this?" and you're thinking, "Yeah, the team's more than capable of doing that." Yeah. But it's like, I'm not an IT company, and I'm not a this and I'm not a that.
I think that's the thing. I think you have to have. I mean, as time's going along, you know, do you then start bringing in service level agreements and then saying, you know, you're only available at these times, all that sort of stuff? Because, as I said, I'm quite open. I always want to do a good job. We always work really, really hard. The whole team work really, really hard. But people then can take advantage of that, and that's when you kind of have the wrong sort of fit. So I had clients like phoning me like nearly midnight and stuff like that. Can you get this done? I'm like that.
Yeah,
you know, why do we need to get it done right now? You know, phoning me at the weekend when I'm with the kids, and I try to kind of take some downtime to spend some time with the kids at the weekend. Sunday nights, I need this done right now. You need this done. So I'm then get this kind of fear building up and going, again, not fear, anxiety probably. I better get this done for them. I'm like that. Ashley, I'm sorry. Like, I'm going. I can't do this with the kids. You just go with them yourself. And that's affecting your life, you know.
That puts extra pressure on your relationship. Doesn't need to be
exactly. You know, I didn't start the business to take this off people, you know. And so it's just the wrong fit that with types of clients, and it can really damage the business. It can really damage the time in the business as well. So, I mean, I'm not billing for that time and the Sunday night and stuff like that, you know. So.
Bill double, and then they won't ask you on a Sunday. I'll wait till Monday and pay single rate.
That was one of the bits of advice I got, because I remember at the time, when I have a problem, I'll probably talk to everybody about it, so you would know about it, and a family member. I'm like, I've got this problem. So I told somebody and says, and they'd be like that, you know, you can fire your clients. It's like they can fire you, but you can fire them as well. Remember, it goes both ways. I was like, actually, you're right. And I was like, well, how do you go about that? And it was basically, my dad had done this before with a client. It's like, bill them more. So you turn around and you basically say, right, we've not looked at our costs in a good while. We've now, you know, we've brought on a lot of other stuff. We're now increasing the cost. The increasing the cost is just for that person. So you charge them as much that you then think, well, I can take that pain.
It's worth the headache if I've got the kind of like.
But it's a good way for them then to kind of go, well, I'm not going to pay that. And you go, okay, right. Right, thanks very much, and you know,
we've appreciated working with you.
We've appreciate it. So I've done that I think twice, and they've never paid the increase. nobody's ever paid the increase. But yeah, it's all about trying to get the right fit and making sure that, obviously, you know, the way that I've learned about that business mistake is getting my process right from the start. You know, getting to know the person. So, you know, somebody comes on as an inquiry, you talk to them. You know, you have a discovery call with them, you meet the team, you know, you kind of start to get a bit more of a feel for it, and that's when you essentially learn a little bit more about, you know, people, and are they the right fit for your business and stuff like that. Can we, and as well as that, we've had certain successes with different businesses in different sectors. You know, you can do a good job for them, so you kind of have to be honest with yourself.
Yeah, that's where you're kind of stronger. Or?
Yeah, be honest with yourself as well. I mean, what about you? You know, other business mistakes? Is it mainly around people, or is there anything else?
I think it's always going to surround the clients, the people, and the kind of cash within the business. Cash flow is probably another one, actually. Cash flow forecasting specifically. So when we're looking at the business and we're building up, we maybe be guilty, and a lot of business owners I've met do this. They look at the bank balance and they say, "Oh, there's 28k in the bank, so I'm doing all right." And you're like, "Well, are you doing all right though?" Because if you're not setting your business up, so it's like, now I've learned that lesson. So I used Starling Bank. It's not a paid promotion. It's just that's how I use. And when I first used them, I was kind of like really angry, because I thought, I can't set up a second bank account. This is a nightmare, because I've always had a second bank account for the VAT. So if you pay me, I take the VAT and 10%, so 20 and 10, 30% aside, and I stick it to the side in a second account. That way, the money I've got is effectively the money I've genuinely been paid, for the most part. And that's what I pay the wages off and the suppliers and such like. And then let's say if I have a freelancer doing a bit of work for me, I have a folder for them, right? There's Debbie's folder, bit of money there for Debbie, and then when she's due to be paid, that's where she gets paid from. But then I noticed with Starling they do spaces, so they have these kind of like ideal buckets, and I'm like, that's ideal.
I've got the same thing myself.
And I think, see, jars, that's a brilliant way of doing it, because you're saying, right, there's my VAT, there's my savings, there's my marketing budget, and it just allows you to do that.
Yeah.
But then what it does is it allows me to look at my bank balance and see a lower number. If I was braver, I would push the number down even further, because I think it's good to look at your bank balance and say, there's only £3,000 in there. There's only £3,000, and I've got to pay, say, £12,000 in wages at the end of the month. So then you're thinking, right, I need to make another £9,000 at least, maybe a bit more, because there might be unforeseen costs. Oh, I've bought a coffee today, right, I better make £15,000.
Yeah.
So it puts you into that kind of like constantly be looking for the commercial angle of it.
Yeah.
So that's one of the tools I use, is Starling with the kind of folders. But I use another tool called Float App, which for me, amazing forecasting tool, can pull off Xero or QuickBooks or Free Agent. As long as you have good bookkeeping, it keeps the number there. And then it has what I call a death date. People laugh when I say that, but I'm thinking, but it's good to know that. So it's like your business will die on the 18th of September, right? But if that doesn't focus you and sharpen you up, nothing will, because it's like, well, look, you can't mess about. You can't just doss about in the golf course or go off on holidays for 3 weeks. You need to look at it and say, right, there's the cash flow. This is what we need to make. And if I want to invest and buy that big office or a new camera or a new service or a new type of marketing, I need to generate the money for it if I want to bring on that member of staff. But what's quite cool about it is it allows you to do things like scenario-based planning. So you can look at it and say, right, I'm going to make these 2 hires. Let's say it's costing me $5,000 a month. Hardware, maybe another couple of grand for that. So it's like an $8,000 purchase and then $5,000 kicker every month. But then I can see it and say, well, sugar, we're not going to die on the 18th of September now. Now we're going to die next week. And you're like, well, you're not going to hire them then, are you? You're going to look, or you're going to look at it and say, where could I drive revenue? Where could I get revenue in? But that's been a huge business mistake, because I see businesses making that all the time. And where they glance at that balance and they say, I've got 28 grand, I'm doing all right. It comes to the VAT, and then let's see when you always hear it. So see when they go, oh, I just paid the VAT man, and I'm like, so that tells me that you don't keep that money aside.
And I would 100% agree, because I was one of the people that made that mistake. So I went VAT registered. So I never went VAT registered from day one. I probably should have. If I was ever starting a business I would be VAT registered from day one. I built myself up, hit the threshold, then went VAT registered, which is hard enough. That's a price increase for everybody. But
it was a nightmare migrating the clients, because they're like, well, what do you mean?
But I did the same thing, and it was like, I think I spent the VAT one time, and I was like, oh, and then I'm like, oh, I'm going to have to find this money, and oh no. And Spaces is just great, installing. I'm a Starling user as well, and Spaces is amazing. So I do that with all my tax, and I also do it just with having a wee bit of kind of buffer as well.
Like savings or a rainy
day kind of thing as well. So, and it just comes out. So on day one, bang bang bang, it's out just at the same time as the staff being paid. So you see the money go down. And it's like fuel again. I need to make sure that
top that back up.
I need to start getting the money back into it. It's a great tool. And I also use Float. I used to use like kind of different things with cash flow, and then trying to move it in, and it took such a long time, putting it into a spreadsheet and then checking things. And because like I use like Xero, but I think that Float app, it links with like FreshBooks.
It connects with them all.
Connects with them all. And it just links in, and all of it is just there. You've got the
nice
3 months
graph,
back, the 3 months back, and then everything all sort of coming in. I think like it even shows you ones that are not like paging such a long while, and such a good thing. And then you can add in the different scenarios, and it's helped me grow my business, because I've then been able to kind of go, right, do I bring on 1 member of staff or 2 members of staff? So if I bring on 2 members of staff, then I can build that sort of scenario in, as you said. So I'm going to start losing the money, and the money's going to start dripping down, but then it's going to then start like kind of building back up. And if it doesn't start building back up, that's where you've got the death of the business. For me, it's before that. It's kind of like, well, they're not making the money anymore, so that's the decision to make. And is that staff member right? What is it? Me, it's not training them right. What's the problem here? Because we need to fix it before we hit that sort of death day. What brilliant tools. But again, I just wanted to jump in because I did actually make that business mistake.
Just as a spoiler, I think we've all made that mistake at some stage or not. I'd like to kind of see if there is business owners that have not spent the VAT at least once. Because I mean, if things are hitting the fan and you've got bills to pay, hey, that money's there, you're going to use it. You know what I mean? It's like kind of, I've never spent my mortgage money that kind of way, but I can understand why people do that when they're right up against it. So let's kind of summarise then. What's your business belters from today, Mark? My
business belters from today is definitely watch the pennies. You know, I think if anything that's coming out of it today is make sure that you always run your business, you know, making money. You know, you can drop down at certain times, you know, and go into the red, but it can't be for a long time. You know, you have to plan around it and you have to, you know, strategize it. We talked there about different tools to use. Fintech itself, you know, financial technology is growing massively. So you've not just got Starling, but you've got Monzo. There's other ones like Tide and Revolut and all sorts of. So they all do all these sorts of things. Again, Float app. There's lots and lots of other ones out there as well that do a similar thing. I'm sure your accountant, if you've got an accountant, will be able to
they'll advise you
with it. Use these tools because they save you time and they just give you that insight and data. To not make the mistake, to basically be able to pay the VAT in time, don't have a big corporation tax bill or any loans that you need to pay off. It's all there. It's like it's right in front of you. But yeah, and probably another business belt is just don't be too trusting with people. You know, again, for me, it was being a kind of big people person, and you know, just like everybody's just like me and all happy and nice. They're not. They're not. Some people are bastards. I'm sorry for swearing in a podcast, but it's true.
I think it's solid.
What about you? What about your business belts?
So for me, I would say definitely get paid up front. Protect yourself with terms, conditions, both in employment and in contracts. Remember, you can fire your clients if you need to fire them. And if you need to fire a client or fire a staff member, do it early rather than letting it become and fester into a big problem.
Excellent.
And that'd be mine for today.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you very much for tuning in today. Today we talked about business mistakes and hope you learned a lot from it. Again, this is completely free. We do not make money off affiliate marketing. We do not advertise, even though we mentioned some companies. So please, can you share, subscribe, tell your friends about it. We are trying to share our business belters. And if you can share these business belters by even adding in any comments box when we share it on our social media account, that would be absolutely fantastic. So it's a goodbye from me.
It's a goodbye for him.
Thank you very much.
See you guys.